Chapter 143 Entering the Stardew Forest's hybrid region. The two of them exited the tent at the same time. Huro Yuao's eyes were sparkling golden, and his spirit-eyes 2 soul rings rose up from beneath his feet, projecting his spiritual detection towards a certain direction. He could detect more than 600 meters in a single direction, and his detections were highly accurate. Xiao Xiao and Wang Dong darted out from the tent. The campfire was lit in between both tents, and it shielded them from the coldness of the night. The flames shone on their faces and flickered with a pale red luster. Huro Yuao reported his findings softly. 8 people, 6 males and 2 females. I can't figure out one male's cultivation level, and I think he has at least 7 rings. There's a soul emperor and 4 soul kings amongst the other 5. The 2 females have about 3 soul rings each, about the same as us. They're walking towards us right now. Wang Dong asked, shall we hide? Huro Yuao shook his head and replied, no need. They're definitely not coming here for us, and they'll be here very soon. The tents and the campfire tracks cannot be erased so quickly, and will raise suspicion instead. We just have to be natural and wait for them to come. I think they're probably here to hunt soul beats, just like we are. Voices could already be heard while they were discussing. Hey, there's a fire here. A silhouette appeared before Huro Yuao and the others before the voice arrived. It was a tall and skinny man, and he was so scrawny that he resembled a bamboo stick. However, he moved with astonishing speed, and his gaze landed on Huro Yuao and the others beside the campfire the moment he appeared. Huro Yuao and the others stared at him as if they had been startled. There was no doubt that this tall and skinny man was an agility-type soul master. He took the lead and scouted the path ahead, and he relaxed the moment he realized that Huro Yuao and the others were children, barely over 10 years old. He raised one hand, and a beam of yellow light sparkled in the center of his palm. This light beam surged about 5 meters into the sky before it transformed into a yellow circle of light that permeated outwards. Huro Yuao and the others sprang to their feet. They could tell from the other party's movements that he was highly disciplined, and it was apparent that this wasn't a normal team. Who are you? Huro Yuao asked warily but didn't step forward. The skinny man smiled faintly and replied, we're just passing by. We saw your campfire, so we came to take a look. What about you? Who are you guys? There was a smile on his face, but his smile was tinged with arrogance. Huro Yuao answered, we are here in the Great Stardew Forest to hunt soul beasts to collect soul rings. Oh, you're here by yourself to hunt soul beasts? The scrawny man stared at the 3 of them suspiciously. Xiao Xiao grunted coldly and retorted, what? Is that not allowed? The scrawny man chuckled and shook his head with amusement. There was a look of condescension and indifference on his face. Even though the night was dark and dusky, how could Huro Yuao's spirit eyes not be able to see? Figure after figure appeared beside the skinny man at this moment. The lineup was just like Huro Yuao's had detected. There were 6 males and 2 females, including the skinny man. A middle-aged man that was about 40 years old lowered his voice and said, what's the situation, Bei Tang? The skinny man replied respectfully, big brother, there are 3 young fellas that they claim that they're in the Great Stardew Forest to obtain soul rings. They don't have any seniors following them. I've checked the surroundings, and only the 3 of them are here. 2 males and 1 female, and they don't even look like they're 15 years old. Oh. The middle-aged man turned towards Huro Yuao and the others while Huro Yuao and the others were also scrutinizing the people before them. It was apparent that this middle-aged man was the leader, and he was also the 7-ring soul sage that Huro Yuao had identified earlier. His soul power was so exuberant that Huro Yuao couldn't judge his cultivation accurately. Besides this middle-aged man, the other males were all normal-looking people with average builds, and the kind of look that wouldn't be easily recognized in a crowd. Of course, their cultivations weren't normal at all. Their standards were enough to support a mid-level sect. The 2 girls in the party attracted Huro Yuao's attention. They were both wearing warrior robes, and one of them had flowing green hair draped behind her. This girl was enchantingly beautiful. Almost at Jiang Nanan's level. She looked extremely tender, and her pretty eyes moved like flowing water. One could feel her faint gentleness even from afar. She looked like she was around 15 or 16 years old. This was the age when girls were full of adolescence. Her yellow warrior robe was extremely riveting even in the deepest darkness of night. It was slightly bigger than her frame and enveloped her figure nicely, but it wasn't all that visible. The other girl beside her looked around the same age. However, she was a little taller, and her expression was ice cold. Her long black hair was combed neatly and tied into a ponytail, while her white warrior robe was a little more fitting and her long legs were especially alluring. She was so tall that she was almost as tall as Huro Yuao, who was over 1 meter and 70 centimeters tall. This girl wasn't as good-looking as the other one, but her aura felt more elegant and dignified. These 2 girls stood next to each other, and the 2 of them were equally brilliant and attractive in their own ways. My 3 little friends, please come here for a moment. The middle-aged man waved at Huro Yuao and the others. Huro Yuao whispered to Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao, wait here, I'll go take a look. All right. Wang Dong nodded immediately. Xiao Xiao wanted to follow, but she held back when even Wang Dong decided to stay behind. Huro Yuao stepped forward quickly and came before the row of people before them. He was neither obsequious nor supercilious as he said, what do you need? The middle-aged man scrutinized Huro Yuao for a moment and said, little man, you guys are inside the Great Stardew Forest to hunt soul beasts. Huro Yuao nodded and replied, yes. The middle-aged man's eyes were piercing and carried traces of obscurity. It felt as if he was locked onto Huro Yuao and could launch an attack at any moment. However, Huro Yuao was calm and unperturbed as he stood before him and wasn't on guard at all. The middle-aged man smiled and said, my name is Mo Feiyun, and these are my comrades. We are heading into the Great Stardew Forest as well. We traveled throughout the night, and it seems like we're almost there, but everyone is a little exhausted. We can see that you have a campfire started here. I wonder if you can share it with us and let us rest. Huro Yuao agreed heartily. All right. He understood that speaking too much could mess things up. This group of people actually appeared travel-worn, and it was clear that they had been traveling for a long time. This middle-aged man who claimed to be Mo Feiyun was a little wary of him, but Huro Yuao couldn't feel much hostility. His spiritual power was superior to most others, and Huro Yuao's judgment of emotions was usually extremely accurate. His spiritual detection had been activated this whole time, but it was being handled with immense subtlety and ingenuity, and even powerful soul sages wouldn't realize even if the soul sage used their soul power to survey their surroundings. The people before them didn't reveal any intentions of making a move against them. The 2 young girls looked Huro Yuao up and down. The yellow-cloaked girl smiled at him, while the girl clad in white glanced at him coldly. There was a clear distinction in their personalities. Huro Yuao guided the entire group to the campfire, and 2 people quickly set up tents, which were much larger compared to their own. The tent closest to the campfire was a relatively small black tent, which was apparently made from cowhide. These 2 people swiftly set up 2 relatively larger tents with their agile hands and feet afterwards. Mo Feiyun and a few others sat down beside the campfire. It was obvious that their eyes paused on Wang Dong and Xiao Xiao for a longer period of time compared to Huro Yuao. This was especially so for Wang Dong. He attracted everyone's attention after they arrived at the campfire. His short hair was powdery blue, his eyes were the same color, and he exuded a dense light aura. Wang Dong was extremely handsome, and he appeared full of youthful energy. In terms of looks, the yellow-robed and white-robed girls lost their radiance beside him. The yellow-robed girl was evidently a little taken aback, and her pretty face flushed a little when she glanced at Wang Dong. The white-robed girl's cold face appeared slightly surprised as well, and her eyes paused on Wang Dong for a long moment before she turned away. Huro Yuao and the others sat on the other side of the campfire. The 3 of them said nothing at all, and just silently warmed themselves next to the fire. Returning to their cultivation wasn't a good idea with these people around, especially when all of them were incredibly powerful. Mo Feiyun seemed the most affable. He smiled and said, my 3 little friends, how may I address you? Huro Yuao smiled and replied, my name is Yuao, and this is Xiao Dong and Xiao Xiao. He didn't reveal both his and Wang Dong's full name, but Xiao Xiao's name couldn't really be masked with a nickname, so he just said it. Mo Feiyun said, you guys are still young, but your soul power is quite strong. However, venturing into the Great Stardew Forest isn't really a good idea. Have you been inside before? Huro Yuao answered, we've roamed around in the outer regions. Thank you for reminding us. We won't venture too deep inside the Great Stardew Forest. We will leave once we find suitable soul beasts for ourselves. Mo Feiyun continued to ask, where are you guys from? Are you guys from a sect or an academy? Huro Yuao replied, we are from the Douluo Empire, and we are members of the Douluo National Academy. He wouldn't have been able to name another academy Academy before his participation in the Continental Advanced Soulmaster Academy Soul Dueling Tournament. However, he knew a lot more names now. He himself was from the Douluo Empire, so his accent was natural, and thus using the Douluo National Academy to hide their true identities was the most appropriate. He had also become familiar with the Douluo National Academy standards during his battle against their official team, which was led by Princess Juju. Furthermore, part of the Great Stardow Forest was located inside the Douluo Empire anyway. Mo Feiyun and the others reacted in shock when they heard Douluo National Academy. Douluo National Academy was relatively reputable in the continent, and they were one of the elites within the Douluo Empire. They ended up in the Final Four during the recent Continental Advanced Soulmaster Academy Soul Dueling Academy. So you guys are the gifted kids from the Douluo National Academy. No wonder you guys dared to venture into the Great Stardow Forest to hunt soul beasts by yourselves. Mo Feiyun's tone sounded a little more careful, and the air of arrogance around the others receded slightly. It was apparent that the Douluo National Academy's name was extremely handy. Who are you? Al asked. How about you guys, Uncle Mo? Are you guys hunting soul beasts inside the Great Stardow Forest as well? Mo Feiyun nodded and answered. Some of us have reached a bottleneck, and we are just trying our luck inside the Great Stardow Forest. The other tents had been properly set up while they spoke. Mo Feiyun ate something light and chatted idly with Huo Yuao and the others before he went into his tent to rest. Mo Feiyun introduced the people beside him while they were talking. The skinny man was called Bei Tang, the yellow-robed girl was named Wei Na, and the white-robed girl was called Nu Shui. However, Mo Feiyun didn't reveal much about their backgrounds. He made an agreement with Huo Yuao that they would travel together into the Great Stardow Forest, and he was willing to take care of them for a while in exchange for their campfire. Huo Yuao could tell that Mo Feiyun developed such ideas only after he found out that they were from the Douluo National Academy, and they lowered their guard quite a bit as well. Mo Feiyun and the other males entered the two large tents respectively, while Wei Na and Nu Shui walked inside the cowhide tent near the campfire. Judging by their allocations and positions, these two girls' statuses weren't simple. Huo Yuao and the others returned to their own tents, but Mo Feiyun quietly left his own tent and came before Wei Na and Nu Shui's tent. He whispered, "May I enter, my lady? Come in." Nu Shui was the one who spoke. Mo Feiyun bent down and entered the girl's tent. However, he sat down cross-legged at the tent's entrance and didn't proceed any deeper. "Can you tell where these three fellas are from, Master Mo?" Nu Shui asked plainly. Wei Na was sitting by her side, and there was a faint smile on her face from the beginning to the end, but she said nothing. However, judging from the position of her mattress compared to Nu Shui, her status was comparable to Nu Shui's. Mo Feiyun's body began to sparkle with a layer of white light that enveloped the entire tent, blocking out his voice. These three kids are young, but their appearance and qualities are not ordinary, yet they are not that similar. It's obvious that they don't come from the same sect. They should be between Soul Grandmaster and Soul Elder judging by their auras. It's highly believable that they're from the Douluo National Academy at their age. However, I think we should take them with us for safety purposes so that we can avoid any accidents or unforeseen circumstances. If everything is all right with them, lending them a hand isn't much trouble. Nu Shui tilted her head downwards slightly and said, "Then you decide, Master Mo, which one of them do you think deserves the most attention?" Wei Na suddenly opened her mouth. Her voice was incredibly enchanting and sounded like music to the ear. Mo Feiyun answered, "Your Highness, I think the youth called Yua deserves the most attention. I have noticed from the expressions they give each other that the Xiao girl trusts and admires Yuao, while the good-looking Xiaodong has good chemistry with him. The two of them didn't exchange glances much, and they seemed to understand each other with a single twinkle in their eyes. This Yuao can lead this trio, so he's definitely not simple. Furthermore, my judgment of his abilities is also murky. He hasn't seemed to reach Soul Elder yet, judging by his soul power fluctuations, so the other two are better. However, he's overflowing with life energy, at a level higher than even grown-ups." Nu Shui tilted her head again and said, "Go back and rest, Master Mo. We just have to pay more attention to them tomorrow." Yes, my lady, your highness, I will take my leave now." Mo Feiyun retreated outside the tent, and the layer of white mist was immediately withdrawn and dissipated. "Xiaodong is really good looking, sister." Wei Na giggled once Mo Feiyun left the tent. Nu Shui's pretty face revealed a faint smile. "What? Have you fallen for him?" Wei Na pressed her rosy lips together. "No way. I'm just helping you out." Nu Shui shook her head and replied, "I don't like boys that are younger than me. Master Mo is right. Yuao is extremely sophisticated. I don't know why, but I keep feeling a wave of goosebumps whenever I'm near him, and my martial soul also fluctuates conspicuously. It feels as if there's something about his aura that can restrain and counter my martial soul." Wei Na asked, "Does he have a fire-type martial soul?" Nu Shui shook her head once more and said, "Doesn't seem like it. We will know once we enter the Great Stardow Forest. The three of them must have some tricks up their sleeves since they dared come in by themselves. We should rest early. We have to collect our soul rings inside the Great Stardow Forest tomorrow, so hopefully our luck will be good. If we don't find anything suitable here, we'll have to travel to the northern side. The northern side is a lot more dangerous and perilous. All right, let's go to bed. Can I hug you to sleep, Sister Shui? Cut it out." Huo Yuao and Wang Dong were discussing in their own tent as well, except Huo Yuao's spiritual power blocked off their voices. "Yuao, will there be any problems if we travel with them into the forest?" Wang Dong was a little anxious. Huo Yuao chuckled and said, "What are you worried about? I can tell that these people are from some sect, and the two girls are likely the ones that are here to collect soul rings, while the others are their servants. We can save a lot of effort by following them inside the Great Stardow Forest, and we can probably venture deeper as well. Even if they are hostile towards us, they will have to face Elderson first." Wang Dong was confused. "Are you interested in one of the girls?" Huo Yuao had a face of exasperation. "We're still children. Can you not speak like a grown-up? Plus, will a girl be interested in me with you around? It's good that you know," Wang Dong said with an air of arrogance. Huo Yuao was immediately rendered speechless. Nothing else happened that night. Huo Yuao and the others got up early to pack up their tents the next day, and Huo Yuao cultivated the purple demon eyes while facing the rising sun. Mo Feiyun came out of his tent when the three of them were starting on their breakfast. "You guys are up early." Mo Feiyun greeted Huo Yuao first. Huo Yuao smiled and said, "Dawn is just breaking, Uncle Mo. You guys aren't considered late." Mo Feiyun asked, "Who is collecting soul rings amongst the three of you?" Huo Yuao had no intention to hide anything and replied, "It's me. My soul power has reached rank 30, and I need an appropriate soul ring to break through and become a soul elder. My two friends are here to accompany me." Mo Feiyun was full of awe and amazement. Becoming a soul elder at such a young age. Impressive. Huo Yuao smiled in response, but said nothing more. Mo Feiyun and the others moved swiftly, and it wasn't long before they packed everything up and finished breakfast. Wei Na and Nu Shui were still dressed like they were yesterday, and the 10 of them got on their way. The others in their group rarely said anything, besides Mo Feiyun. The two girls occasionally chatted between themselves, and didn't pay much attention to Huo Yuao and his friends. Mo Feiyun took point throughout the entire process. The other 5 men formed an arc, while the 2 young girls, Huo Yuao and his friends, walked in the middle. Huo Yuao had a good feeling about Mo Feiyun and his group. They hadn't inquired about Huo Yuao and the others' martial souls or soul skills, or other similarly sensitive topics, even though asking them to tag along contained elements of wariness and vigilance. They hadn't made Huo Yuao and friends to walk in front to scout the path. It was apparent that they didn't harbor evil intentions. The company arrived at the Great Stardow Forest's borders when the sky was already completely bright. Mo Feiyun stopped and turned around. "We will enter the forest soon. Just a gentle reminder, everyone has to remain alert and vigilant, as anything can happen inside the Great Stardow Forest. There could even be 10,000-year soul beasts in the forest's outer regions, and soul beasts of all sorts of abilities, to the point where we might not be able to rescue you in time. So, everyone has to be especially careful. I will continue taking point later. Yuao, the 3 of you will follow behind me and prepare to reinforce me. This includes Wei Na and Nu Shui. The rest of you will sweep out and protect the flanks." "Yes." The other 5 men answered in unison. Huo Yuao paid the most attention to a short and stocky man, besides Bei Tang who they had met earlier. He stood in the center at the back, and he was the most powerful individual besides Mo Feiyun, as he was a soul emperor. His name was Shu Shandong. Huo Yuao and his friends had no objections to this arrangement. The soul sage was clearing the path for them, and this meant there wasn't much pressure on them anymore. Mo Feiyun made a few more arrangements before he immediately turned and walked into the Great Stardow Forest. One could tell from his movements that he had absolute faith in his comrades. Huo Yuao and the others didn't delay either. Huo Yuao walked in front, while Wang Dong and Xiao took one side each, and the 3 of them followed closely behind Mo Feiyun and entered the Great Forest. That is, Wang Dong exclaimed in shock. This was because he suddenly realized that Mo Feiyun's body began to emanate a dense mist, and this mist enveloped his entire body within while it permeated quickly to the point where they couldn't see him anymore. Master Mo's martial soul is cloud. He's using his own powers to scout and protect everyone. Wei Na's charming voice rang out. Wang Dong glanced at her, and she flashed a smile back at him. Her tender smile was extremely charming, but it was clear that her beautiful smile didn't find the right target. Wang Dong nodded at her before he turned back without a trace of expression on his face. Mu Shui glimpsed at Wei Na, and amusement flowed from her eyes, while a look of annoyance flashed across Wei Na's soft eyes. The mist was pervasive, but didn't impede Hua Yuao's spiritual detection. Hua Yuao could feel from Mo Feiyun's martial soul that he had exactly 7 soul rings, 2 yellow, 3 purple and 2 black. Even though it wasn't the optimal combination of soul rings, it was considered relatively formidable. Cloud. This was a martial soul that was seldom seen, and should be considered a tool soul. Hua Yuao just wasn't sure whether he was an assault type or control type soul master. The cloudy mists in front of them gradually expanded and permeated their surroundings like threads. The cloudy mist didn't look like it contained any power at all, but expanded incredibly far into the distance while it drifted through the air, and quickly reached out beyond the effective range of Hua Yuao's spiritual detection. Hua Yuao faintly understood that this soul skill was similar in functionality to his spiritual detection. Mo Feiyun would have certain judgments about anything that the cloudy mist touched, according to the situation. Even though it wasn't as accurate as his spiritual detection, Mo Feiyun's cultivation allowed him to scout and cover an area that was far larger than his own area of effect. It was no wonder that he didn't pay much attention to his comrade's formation after entering the Great Stardow Forest by himself, and neither did he really give any instructions. Hua Yuao was surprised when he realized that Mo Feiyun's soul ring didn't light up when he released the cloudy mist into the sky. This meant that the cloudy mist was his martial soul's innate skill, and not a soul skill. Having its own innate abilities implied that his martial soul was of extremely high quality. Let's go. The cloudy mist gradually dissipated, and Mo Feiyun's voice could be heard from in front of them. The mist surrounding his body was still there, and his figure was still obscure and blurry. They entered the Great Stardow Forest once again. Hua Yuao and his friends quickly felt an unprecedented unwinding feeling, as if they didn't have to do anything much at all, and all they had to do was follow the trail. Mo Feiyun constantly changed their course as they traveled, and he was a lot faster than the 3 of them exploring the forest by themselves. They didn't run into any soul beast ambushes, and not even 30 minutes had passed before they were more than 10 kilometers into the Great Stardow Forest. Mo Feiyun didn't even look like he intended to slow down. The Great Stardow Forest's shape wasn't regular. The widest areas was more than 200 kilometers across, and its surface area was more than 100,000 square kilometers. It lived up to its reputation as the Great Stardow Forest, and it was larger than some countries' provinces. Furthermore, even titled Douluo wouldn't dare to walk right through its center. The world of Soul Master's perennial adventures enabled them to divide the Great Stardow Forest into separate regions according to the strength of the soul beasts that appeared in the vicinity. The outermost 20 kilometers were called the peripheral region, and only 10-year, 100-year, and 1,000-year soul beasts roamed this area. 10,000-year soul beasts were occasionally seen, but they were rare. The next region was called the hybrid region, and it occupied 40% of the largest radius, which was 100 kilometers. The greatest number of soul beast species were found here, and they had the highest cultivation levels. This was the resting place of 100-year, 1,000-year and 10,000-year soul beasts. 100-year soul beasts. The soul beasts had to move around in herds if they wanted to stay in this area. The innermost 40 kilometers, which was about 80 kilometers in diameter, was known as the Great Stardow Forest's core region. This region was vast, and the number of soul beasts that lived here was far fewer than inside the hybrid region because only incredibly powerful soul beasts inhabited this area. 100-year soul beasts were almost never seen in this region, and even 1,000-year soul beasts were few and far between. 10,000-year soul beasts were the zone's main inhabitants, followed by the occasional frightening 100,000-year soul beast. According to the Soul Master's research, soul beasts that could have their own territory inside this area had to be at least 30,000 years old. The 10-kilometer wide region in the very center of this 80-kilometer zone was known as the Slaughtering Grounds, and it was also called the Forbidden Grounds. Undetailed maps of the Great Stardow Forest always colored this region with blood red colors. Legend had it that petrifyingly fearsome beasts resided there, and their existences were even more terrifying than the soul beasts in the core regions of the extreme north. It was a region that even transcendent Douluo had to be extremely careful in. Hua Yuao could tell from Mo Feiyun's traveling speed that his target wasn't the 20 outermost kilometers of the Great Stardow Forest's peripheral region. He was a soul sage, and could very well enter the outer regions of the core region if he wasn't taking so many people with him. It wasn't too difficult for him to ensure everyone's safety inside the hybrid region, and the species, quality and number of soul beasts that lived inside the hybrid region was far superior to the peripheral region. Hua Yuao and his friends didn't even dare to enter the peripheral region, let alone the hybrid region. No matter how talented they were still soul elders. After all, they could possibly hold their own in one battle, but there were innumerable soul beasts within the Great Stardow Forest. They wouldn't have a chance to retreat if someone was severely injured. This was one of the most important reasons why Hua Yuao refused to venture too deep inside. Without Mo Feiyun and his group, he would probably continue on with Wang Dong and Xia for about 5 to 10 kilometers, but he would never take the risk of entering the hybrid region. The company pressed on and made another 5 kilometers before Mo Feiyun started to slow down, and he stayed a little closer to Hua Yuao and the others behind him. The outer regions of the Great Stardow Forest's hybrid region are right in front of us, so everyone should be more careful. We have to avoid angering certain sensitive soul beasts, and I will reduce the area covered by my clouds. This will reduce their intimidation as well, so everyone should be ready for battle. Hua Yuao was once again astonished by the discipline from Mo Feiyun's company. Their formation quickly became more compact after Mo Feiyun's reminder, but there was at least 3 meters between each of them so that they wouldn't hinder each other. Wei Na and Mu Shui had been observing Hua Yuao and his friends along the way, especially when they were hurrying along in the forest and when they were met with threats from soul beasts. Hua Yuao maintained a steady pace behind Mo Feiyun, and he didn't display a single trace of exhaustion. His body was nimble and agile, and his movements were crisp and decisive. Hua Yuao was the vanguard, while Xia and Wang Dong were positioned slightly behind him, and the 3 of them lined up like a horn. They could tell from Wang Dong and Xia's occasional glances at Hua Yuao's movements that Hua Yuao was actually their leader. Mo Feiyun's reminder swiftly became reality. The company proceeded forward, and not much time passed before Mo Feiyun suddenly retreated as quickly as he could. A series of chirping sounds could be heard, and a chain of shadows appeared in front of them. These shadows moved at breakneck speed and surged through the trees. They seemed extremely organized as they dangled through the treetops, and surrounded the 10 of them in no time at all. Be careful, everyone. They're scarlet fire monkeys. They're extremely aggressive. Mo Feiyun remarked to everyone as he shifted backwards and stood in front of Hua Yuao and the others. Scarlet fire monkeys? Hua Yuao observed the soul beasts and the trees around them while a memory surfaced in his mind. It was a fire-type soul beast that liked to live in groups, was extremely irritable and short-tempered, hostile, and held grudges. They were agility-type soul beasts that were adept with long-range attacks, and they were incredibly challenging to handle. The scarlet fire monkeys all looked similar, except there were differences in their sizes. The biggest one was about 2 meters tall, taller than most grown-up humans, while the smallest one was not more than 2 feet in height. Their fiery red fur was conspicuous inside the forest, and the 2 lengthy fangs protruding from their lips showed their carnivorous nature. There were about 30 to 40 monkeys in this group, and every single one started to chirp incessantly once they surrounded everyone, as if they wanted to intimidate the company. The burliest and most majestic scarlet fire monkey on a tree crown in the distance hammered its chest, and specks of flame flickered from its fiery red fur. It leapt into the air like a lightning bolt, and launched an enormous fireball that was at least 1 meter in diameter at the same time. Soul beasts were unlike humans, and the only difference they could tell was between things they could eat and things they couldn't. This scarlet fire monkey wasn't a 10,000-year soul beast yet, as its fur wasn't completely golden red, but it had at least 5,000 years of cultivation. Their strength as a herd allowed them to inhabit the hybrid region's outer regions. The other scarlet fire monkeys leapt from their trees as their monkey king launched its attack. Accompanied by their immense speed, sphere after sphere of fire descended from the sky like a meteor shower as they fired on the entire company. Mo Feiyun grunted coldly, and thick mist energy expanded outwards. Uncountable missiles condensed from air shot out in all directions in the next moment, and immediately dispelled most of the fireballs raining down from the sky. The sphere of mist in front of him subsequently materialized into the shape of a hand, and he grabbed the Scarlet Fire Monkey King's enormous fireball. The enormous fireball burned violently and swiftly ate away at the mist energy. However, the giant hand formed by the mist energy swiftly closed up, and the fireball was shattered into pieces. Sparks flew in all directions as they dissipated in the air. Nobody knew if Mo Feiyun did it on purpose, but when he was dispelling most of the Scarlet Fire Monkey's attacks, a single fireball broke through his defenses, and this fireball was going straight for Huo Yuao and his friends. A vibrant pair of blue wings extended in midair. The blue hues were as pure as the sky, and their color immediately became the center of attention. Golden light patterns glimmered, and this slim figure flickered faintly while blades of light shimmered from the wings. The descending fireball was slashed in two and flew away into the distance. Thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.